In the course of the last couple of weeks and possibly in the last day, I've come to an epiphany, and that is that when it comes to completing various things, whether it be a project or some other goal I seek to attain, when it strictly has to do with my participation and there's a set criteria I must meet, for the vast majority of times it gets met. And what I'm conveying there is when I spoke about all those various relationship difficulties, even though it took me out of my comfort zone to go out and try and market myself toward all of these various different individuals, I felt a sense of peace in knowing that it was me who chose to give it my all and actually step away from things that I rely on or otherwise would find content with. Because even if we do feel that our lives are just all right or successful, if there's something we want to do, and that we choose not to do for whatever reason, we may come to regret it. I didn't want to look back in 5 years and say, oh, I should have approached that person. I should have written this novel. There are various things that I go out and actively participate in and get done and accomplished or otherwise started on because it's more so my willingness to see the results overriding those fears. Um, a good example would be this individual I was speaking to not too long ago who told me that she had some kind of difficulties and I guess her level of courage when it comes to males that she chooses to go out with. And this was one of her reasons for declining my request or whatever. And I thought about it, I said, that doesn't seem to be the biggest rebuke I've had, but more so her admitting that her own inadequacies are somehow causing a negative adverse effect to myself. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I've got inadequacies galore, but I do a couple of things very correctly. One is that I know most things having to do with American history since the U.S. was founded, and I'd wager that my political knowledge is one of the most expedient out there in terms of those who particularly engage in the common day practice of talking about politics and various things relating to government within America. And that could be interpreted as narcissistic, but it is true. I'm very knowledgeable on those things. Um, and I'm not going to pretend I wasn't. It was something I recognized quite some time ago. I was actually told it would serve to be a detriment, but I think otherwise, because most of my positive reception has come from that particular area of expertise, if you will. Another thing I'm very much acquainted with is the art of writing. I can write and use various grammatical terms to just throw around. And there are times where you, in the course of speaking, as I'm doing now, tend to stumble or otherwise get mixed up in your words. But I think for the most part, I'm an on the spot, good, unscripted debater when it comes to certain topics. So these are all things that I feel I practiced for quite some time. I didn't wake up one day and know things that are historically related. There was a series of months where I just went and read things. Um, when it comes to language, I would say that's formulated over the course of someone's upbringing. Just various techniques I employed to prevent the art of of stuttering, if you will. So, what I'm seeking to convey here is that there's an ongoing irritation I have because it's one thing for me to say, okay, because of my own issues, I'm not going to be this or that. It's another thing for someone else to say, because of how I feel about myself, I'm not going to let you do this, or you're not going to have that. And I can't make someone feel a different way. I can't control emotions or just how else someone else functions. But nonetheless, I feel there is this part in most people who have a choice of one thing or the other, and to not take the chance because they think it'll backfire on them. And I, commonly will say, "Oh man, I shouldn't have done this. Oh, why even bother with that?" But when it comes down to it, I can't have regrets over most things I do because they still challenge my mind or otherwise challenge some particular aspect of my core belief system or various ways in which I've become accustomed to doing things. So this is more a call to, I guess, experiment with various people or manners of going about your operations. It's I'm trying to think of a good way to just spell it out to conclude here. Every time you think to not do something that is either meeting a person, speaking at some event, think to yourself, what do you have to lose? Because when I approached these various individuals, either for friendship or romance, whatever it was, I figured I had something to gain, which was a person I could care about. And the only thing I could lose was potentially regretting that I didn't do it. And, I think I've come to not have problems with my choices because they reflected a willingness to go out and take risk and not be so caught up in, oh, what if this doesn't work this way and what if that doesn't work that way? And people do that. And I did it just for some time, but I'm through with it.